Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon Midnight Mandela. How is everybody doing this week? It's been a little bit of a quiet week for me again. Sometimes quiet is good. I did feel pretty strange yesterday. I don't know how to describe it. My nerves were like itchy, but I just took aspirin and that seems to have toned it back. So you hear my voice is a little weird again. I don't know. That's another thing. But I don't feel too bad, so that's good. Yeah, actually, now that I haven't talked a lot today, and now I'm listening to my voice, I'm like, dang, it's all okay. So I don't know. I don't know. I was wondering if it was a shift or not, but then it's really, if it is, it wasn't much of one. Maybe it's in the beginnings. I'm not sure. Again, kind of quiet on the Mandela front. Some of these I actually found a few weeks ago, and I had laid the pieces of paper around, and I'm pretty sure I didn't actually get them onto the clipboard and cover them. So, this is one not meant to be political, actually, in this particular case, but when the arm pokes first came around, there was quite a bit of research, and everybody's like, and I did some too, and they're like, this is the first time that mRNA has ever been used in, successfully. And when I did the research, that's what I found, and probably millions of people all over were doing the same, like skeptics. And then other people were coming in and saying, well, we've been working on this for 20 or 10 years, 10 years of research. And then the other people would come back and go, yeah, but it was 10 years of failed research. Like Moderna had attempted to use this to cure certain genetic diseases, and they found out that the output of the cells when altered was inconsistent and it was not effective for the things it was used for. So then they had switched over to this like vaccine concept instead because of the failed trials in the earlier attempts. And that was like it. There was nothing. So I think that it is going backwards in time now. And there was two different things that so the slip of paper, I had found this one some weeks ago. It may be like more even like a month or so ago. And now the first mRNA vaccine for humans is now approved in 2013. So it was first tested in mice in the 1990s. Now I don't remember it going back nearly that far. It was like when it showed up in the universe here, they were saying it was like 10 to 15 years of testing. But now in the 90s, they started this on mice, and in 2013, a fully approved rabies vaccine for humans was in circulation and being used. And I'll tell you one thing about this week is though nothing really Mandela has happened, the coincidences and the way things are falling into place have been on the upswing. I don't know if like Mercury retrograde is over and there was a bounce back or what. I actually don't even know what the whole storyline is of that. But so I found this one weeks and weeks ago, and then I found the slip of paper today. I'm kind of stairs going through stuff. I'm like, oh, this paper. I think I had like plopped it there like some time ago. But then today earlier, I found another Mandela that directly relates to this, that very closely relates to this. Another one about vaccines. So, yes. So basically in 2013 we have this rabies vaccine in humans, and it's mRNA. So, this story that they were developing them for the Ebola virus, I have heard that one before, but I had heard it kind of failed. But then I don't know. They're saying some vaguey stuff about it here, so that's very suspicious to me. And it looks like they were using the nanoparticles even back then. 2013, I mean, did you even hear about nanoparticles in 2013? And it would have to have been considerably before that this was first being developed, right? In order for it to be approved in 2013, I mean, how long was the testing for this to be approved? Usually it's like 10 years. So that would be like 2003 they had nanoparticles. Seems a little fishy. Let me just put the live chat on. My neighbors woke me up with bitter fighting, and then they were all lovey-dovey in the afternoon. Huh. Well, some relationships are really volatile and they have their giant screaming fit and then they're like through it and all night. I've seen that without Mandela shifts. I guess you just have to know your neighbors, and I don't know your neighbors, so. The creepy feeling. Okay. So I was talking to a dark wolf the other day, and he said that he had been. I think I talked about this some years ago. They were trying to look at the Schumann resonances to see if there was a pattern that could predict shifts. Like there'll be kind of a wave of people all say, I think we shifted. And for a while, he was finding certain patterns that would predict that. And it worked for like 4 months, and then suddenly it just would not work anymore. But I think he came out with like 1 to 2 shifts ish around there a month seemed to be the pattern. So it may be that that's kind of how often we are shifting. It kind of feels about right for me. Like I'll have that weird nerve feeling, and I'll like a headache. Like I had a headache today, but I'm kind of learning. I take aspirin right at the beginning of the headache. It didn't hurt that much, but instead of like waiting until I feel really crappy, just take the aspirin, the inflammation goes down. I get that weird feeling in my nerves and kind of achy. And I haven't really gotten this, but I've definitely heard people say that they get like heart palpitations as part of theirs. That one's not my particular one, but it seems to be really common. So, I don't know. Things to look for, but I've kind of felt that feeling. All right, so there was that. And then around the same time when I was searching for that, I had also found this, which was that around there? I think so, yes. Apparently, the mRNA vaccines are already in our food supply. So not only have they had these supposedly successful mRNAs for rabies, and I'm sure a lot of you are saying, well, I haven't had a rabies shot since 2013, and I have not. I'm really suspicious that the rabies shots weren't that kind of vaccine in the timeline that I was in 2013. But now, apparently, from what I can see, it is they use fairly regularly. It's really hard to determine how regularly, but it seems to be fairly common to use mRNA vaccines for both pork and chicken. And the bird flu was one of the ones they had the mRNA for. There were a few websites that are saying, oh no, it's not in the food. But then there were other websites naming the vaccines that are being used on these food animals. And then other websites saying, well, it's not in the food. It was just put in the animal, but that doesn't mean it's in your food. I'm like, yes, it does, because if that animal became food after the vaccine, it is. So there's all this like tricky wordplay going on. You can see here, you kind of have to scroll down, and it says current mRNA vaccines being used in swine are injected into the muscle, which causes the development of an immune response. Uh, when this individual comes along, the virus comes along, works again. Yeah, okay, vague stuff. Then here's a weird thing. They say the mRNA never leaves the cells from where it was injected. RNA is a very unstable molecule that must be kept cold, buffered, and insolvent to remain viable. Okay, this is the storyline they were using for the arm poketies for COVID as well, and it was already debunked because the way they write this is weird. Never leaves the cells from where it was injected, which strongly implies that it's injected here, the cells are here, it never leaves here. But we already know that it rapidly circulates all through the body. I mean, even the Pfizer documents and everything say that. So that is not, I can't say for sure on here because it's a different shot, but it's an RNA is shot into the same general area of the muscle. And it seems highly likely to me that the same information that's true from Pfizer for other mRNAs are in fact true from here. We know it circulates. But you can say it never leaves the cells from where it was injected. So that's sort of a vague statement because they could be strongly implying one thing, but really saying that once it goes into a cell, it doesn't leave there, which may be true. It's just that that cell may be far away from where it was injected. We can't really assume anything, but I just feel like this is very slippery the way they wrote this. And then they say RNA is a very unstable molecule that must be kept cold, buffered, and insolvent to remain viable. Well, RNA is a very unstable molecule. This is true. However, mRNA, in the case of the arm pokes that we use, is mod RNA. And it has been altered artificially to be highly stable, and a lot of this stuff does not actually apply. The RNA info does not apply to mod RNA. So this mRNA in here, I would guess it's mod RNA. We don't really know because they're using the M for both regular messenger RNA and they're using an M for mod RNA. Ain't that convenient? So there's a good chance this is mod RNA. So anyway, if you look around, you'll also find it is in the bird because of the bird flu and other stuff. And then it's all vague. And then the cattle industry swears they up and down that they don't use any mRNA. And you can just kind of imagine, the beef eating world to want that kind of stuff out. But then they've had some, like at least one rancher has come forward and said that it is routine to do vaccinations with mRNA. And he apparently is a cattleman, a rancher with large herds. He said that he does inject those on a regular basis. So maybe it really is happening. It's just kind of weirdly vague there. Because, again, there are places still all over the internet that swear up and down that none of these are ever used on animals. And then others just say that's not in our food supply. And then others are saying, well, just because it gets a vaccination in the animal, it's not in your food supply. I'm like, I don't know, very weird business. But I really think this is going backward in time because everybody and their uncle was trying to figure out the history of the mRNA vaccines and like hunting for any clues of maybe any danger or side effects or anything in other creatures, since we did not have access to much information on the human trials. And they weren't able to find anything because there wasn't anything out there until Pfizer released their documents due to the Freedom of Information Act. So if thousands of people hunting couldn't find it, and then here it is, very suspicious to me. I heard some people that glowing moss, glowing a lot more, but when I Googled, didn't seem to glow much more. Almost had a sneeze. It died. Okay. I don't know. Maybe people just shifted into the timeline, and you've been here for a while, and so that to them it's glowing more. Glowing moss. Glowing moss. There's this glowing cave slime. There's the glowing mushrooms. Glowing moss. I don't know if I've ever seen glowing moss on here. Now that you mentioned it, that would be really awesome. Possum. I won't be shocked if it's there, but glowing moss. That looks neat. All right, vague Pinterest article in another language. Maybe anybody who can understand or quit it. Anybody who's understand what language is that? All right, let me just try the regular listings here. Glomos. Schistostega. Moss adapted to grow in low light conditions by using spherical cells in the protonema that acts as lenses. No. Glowing moss in Animal Crossing. Does glowing moss spread in Animal Crossing? Animal Crossing is a video game, I think, right? Animal Crossing. I'm sure we'll get it sooner or later. Do we actually have it yet? Sorry, my computer screen is down again. You know, I just saw somebody else who was doing a video where he always looked to the side, and I found it very irritating, so I apologize. I don't know if it does it bug everybody when it looks like I'm looking over there instead of at you guys, or do you just not really notice that much? I'm just to others, as it kind of was for me. I think it's a deep psychological thing. Like I feel like they're not talking to me. I'm being left out. I mean, I know logically that of course they're talking to me just the same either way because they're talking to a computer screen. It's not me. But I kind of had this weird feeling like I was being dismissed. It'd be like talking to somebody when they're looking at their phone the whole time, you know. It was like, and maybe it's just me, and it's fairly silly, obviously. But it just occurs to me that maybe I should really do something about this problem if it's that obnoxious to everybody else. Goblins, gold luminous moss. No, 2 ways of growing. All right. The problem is this Animal Crossing. Moss. All right, these are Animal Crossing. It looks like I can only find it in Animal Crossing. And Animal Crossing is hogging like all of the Google search. Goblins gold, luminous moss. Luminous moss. Natural luminous moss. All right, see, that one does not say it's glowing. It just says it's adapted to faint light. Let's see. Ooh, wait. Here we go. Here we go. Luminous moss photographed in Japan. Known for its glowing appearance in dark places. Utilizing spherical cells in the protonema that acts as lenses, collecting and concentrating even the faintest light. The chloroplasts absorb the useful wavelengths of the light and reflect back the remainder towards the light source giving the moss a greenish gold glow. The little lenses have the capability of turning towards the light source. Okay, so this one's like almost luminous because it still needs a light source. And then it's sort of weirdly reflecting that light source back. But it's not glow in the dark. It does not look like it's glow in the dark yet. So basically what they're saying is a little bit of light makes this really look weirdly bright in the cave, but if you yank it out and look at it, then it just looks like plain old boring moss. It's in there saying it's a delicate filigree, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it really looks to me like we're just tapping the first toe into this Mandela creation. The story of luminous moss. Oh, it looks like a feather. Well, that's nice. So what we got now apparently is highly reflective moss, not luminous yet. Getting there though, unless you have a link somewhere that I missed. I do expect to get there. All right, so you had some weird time. There's some weird skippy things for a few people. Like the dog is here, now the dog's there. This weird woman's over here, now she's over there, now she's back over there. Okay, so there's something going on with Ozzy. I have not kept up. He was fired. Did he quit? I haven't heard anything. I just slammed down a Starbucks ice cold iced coffee black in the can. Yeah, too bad caffeine doesn't do much for me. It won't wake me up. Yeah, I heard before the only recent arm poke mRNA type pokes were only used in a few Ebola cases and it was not commercialized. That's what I remember too. I'm back with cheesecake. I want some too. Okay, so when I look to the side, it's actually because I have this laptop that was a pretty powerful laptop when I bought it, but the screen half the time won't work. And so I have another screen that I plugged into this laptop. Like I just bought a screen only instead of coughing up for the whole computer. So when this one gets crazy, then I just flip on this other screen and I look at it over there. But the camera is still in here. And so that's why I look to the side a lot on some videos, but not others, because it just depends. That screen is all helter-skelter. Now, but it only does it sometimes. There'll be, days when it works perfectly fine. And I took the laptop to the repair place, and they said that the cost of this repair is probably more than the value of the computer itself. So, that's why. And it is kind of an oldish computer, and occasionally acts like it's going to die and then suddenly rejuvenates fully. So I don't know. Most of my computers do that, frankly. I buy a new one and then I have a new weird problem that comes and goes. The more I think about it, it's probably distrust in the tech or something. Okay, well, nobody has said it really bugs them, so it doesn't bother me, doesn't bother me. Okay. Didn't notice. That's interesting. Okay, so maybe it's just me. I can I can be weird that way. I'll really notice certain things that nobody notices. And then other things that other people really notice and bugs them, I totally don't care. Um, and, even that, it didn't bug me that much, but it just occurred to me that if every last person watching the video is experiencing slight angst over it, I would be more motivated to fix it versus thinking, nobody cares. But if it really is, nobody really cares, then no big deal. Since this is not exactly the most professional operation in the universe anyways. Okay, so we got that one. So another one did come up. And that was this, pretty sure this was, yep, that's the one. All right, so it's still rabies. Okay. So today I'm looking at some Reddit thing, and they said, do you remember they used to say you'd have to get 21 shots of vaccine in the stomach if you got bit by a stray dog? Like, basically, if they had a fear that you were getting rabies, like a dog bit you, they weren't able to get a hold of the dog to make sure it didn't have rabies, that they would have to give you 21 shots in the stomach to make sure that you didn't get rabies. And it was like, 21 shots in the stomach. That just sounds pretty horrible to just about anybody. Especially if you're young and you're not used to getting shots, and there's something about hearing it's in your stomach, which somehow seems creepier than in your arm, even though it probably isn't. Somehow it just feels like they're going to shoot it all the way into my stomach. I actually never looked into that, but I just always be like, and then they would say they'd have to do it because bees, they need so much sample that would have to kill the dog just to find out, and blah. So it was like a nightmare, So apparently now, though, the story is that hasn't been the case for a long time. And this coming on the heels of this information that the mRNA has been available for rabies since 2013 now, which I'm very suspicious of. That seems highly related, that as this current tech goes back in time, that also is changing the history of vaccination in that way. So there's the 21 shots is not there. And I found a very interesting article. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. This was a weird article. Okay, let's see. Where is it? All right, so this paragraph here. Several years ago, treatment for rabies included 21 injections into a person's stomach. It was extremely painful, involved a long needle. Okay, so that memory, which I was not sure of, seems to be corroborated here. Several years ago. All right, now let's go up here and just look at when this was written. All right, 2013. So several years ago. So several years ago would be like 2010 from this article. All right, 2010, several years ago, around there. Treatment for rabies included 21 injections. All right. However, since the early 1980s, there's a much different rabies vaccine to treat humans for rabies exposure. Okay, so how does several years ago, which would be 2010, suddenly mean 1980s, which is 15 to 20 years earlier? Several means 2 to 3, not 15 to 20. So this is like the weirdest article. Right here, the first sentence and the third sentence automatically contradict each other. 15 to 20 years earlier is not several years ago. I'm just wondering if, like, somebody who wrote this at the time thought it was just a couple years ago, but yet then they do research and find it's the 80s or something. I mean, this is such a classic Mandela clue that we find when we're researching things, that it doesn't make sense. I mean, even assuming that the Matrix didn't write this, but it'll kind of like, people will be like, oh yeah, it was just a few years ago, because it was just a few years ago that you needed 21 injections in your stomach if you got bit by a potentially rabid dog. It was just a few years ago, except for it was also the 80s. I mean, it's like there's all these timelines smashed together here. Now there's this story about they give you a bunch of human rabies immune globulin. Never heard of that one either. Given 4 doses of rabies vaccine. So now it's 4 doses spread apart. What, like 3-7 day, first day 3, day 7, day 14. It's given in a muscle like the upper arm. So not a biggie. Shots into the upper arm don't really hurt. But then there's this story of side effects from the vaccine. Does it hurt? I think that was for the human immunoglobulin, or whatever the heck that one they're saying it does. Immune globulin. That supposedly can be quite painful. I'm not sure exactly why. Somewhere in here they had the side effects from the vaccine, and I'm pretty sure they said it was that face dropping thing. I gotta figure out how to pronounce that. Guillain-Barré syndrome or something, where half your face drops. It's supposedly caused by inflammation of the cranial nerves. Developing problems associated with the vaccine itself is not common, but it is possible. You could develop soreness or itching. You could experience headache, muscle aches, and dizziness. 6% of people get the vaccine experience hives, pain in their joints, and fever. Other nervous system disorders, such as Guillain-Barré syndrome, have been reported after rabies vaccine. This could happen rarely, is not whether vaccines developed blah, blah, blah. It's not known whether the vaccine really did it. So this does sound like it is the mRNA because it has similar side effects as what we're seeing with the current mRNAs. Similar. I have literally never even heard of Guillain-Barré syndrome until the last few years, but now here, this article from 2013, it's not saying this is an mRNA vaccine. It's just like a new one. But I'm pretty sure this is the mRNA one that I was just discussing. And again, it's just bizarre because this came up now, and it's like a few weeks after I found that other data, and it's all on the same thing, which is rabies vaccines. So, I mean, it's like the Mandela keeps kind of smacking me. We're living in a disposable world. Everything is disposable. Yeah, lately I've gotten this big kick about just getting like antique stuff back from the days when stuff was built to last off of like Craigslist and eBay. The other day I saw these chair legs sticking out of a garbage can, and I just decided to be a dumpster diver. So I stopped and looked, and it was like this 100-year-old chair that was all wood, and there was actually metal tags on the back, 2 different ones. It looks like it was a government chair from like, I don't know how long ago. How long ago has it been since they put metal marker tags and things? And it had this like something, I mean, it has to be at least from the 70s or earlier. It's this like super monster metal thing underneath so that it could be a swivel chair, like the world's earliest swivel chairs. You could tip the chair. Of course, now they probably call that a hazard. But you people who are older will remember the days when you used to tip the chair and tip the chair until you tipped it too far, and then boosh, and then your dad or mom yelled at you for being an idiot, stop tipping the chair, and then you obeyed for 5 minutes, and then you were tipping the chair again. So it was kind of like one of those where it's like, this thing, they were trying to break up stuff, and I think somebody's moving down there or something, and squash it in the cans, but they could not break this thing because it was indestructible. Like, really heavy metal plates under the bottom held all the wood together. This wood it's got 10,000 layers of varnish on it. I'm like, this thing is indestructible, and it is also pretty cool. I mean, it's not super fancy design or anything. It looked like it might have been some kind of office government chair or something, but like, this thing, the whole house could fall down. This thing will not fall down. I'm keeping it. I'm going to clean it up a little. It just needs a little sanding, and one of the wheels, it looks like it has original wheels on it. One of the wheels, it didn't break like stuff now. It just kind of turned rough and cobbly, so it won't roll anymore. So we're going to have to do something. But that's the thing. 100-year-old chair, and the wheel finally breaks down a little bit. Whereas, stuff now won't even last as long as this chair will continue to last. I'm starting to really like the old stuff. Get that stuff from the 70s, even 100 years ago, is still in good shape a lot of the times. Sometimes little cosmetic flaws, but I'm starting to learn how to fix those so it can look, brand new. It's 100 times better quality. You can get them pretty cheap, like on Craigslist and stuff. A lot of times they'll come out of the attic like filthy, and then they'll just put it up real cheap, and you just have to clean them. I love those old wooden rolling office chairs. Yeah, I know. I was just shocked. I'm like, not the exploding chairs from China. There's one thing about this show. I never know what I'm going to read next. Okay, I do not know about the exploding chairs from China. I don't know was it an assassination attempt, or you're just talking about that they suck and then you sit on them and because I've definitely seen those as well. What do the thumb and pinky fingers up on the hands? I mean, last I knew of the thumb and pinkies, that was the horns of the devil. It was some kind of Black Sabbath thingy or something from the 70s. That's the only one I know of for that hand sign. All right, I remember my friend had to get 21 shots because of a bat. That was 15 to 20 years ago. Okay, so 15 to 20 years ago. 20 years ago would be 2003. So they shouldn't have got that because they had this new mRNA since the 80s. So they should have had the 4-shot paradigm of this, or whatever this rabies was. They said they've had it since the 80s, according to that article. So in the 2000s range would already have been 15 years after. Because it was 15 to 20 years ago from that article, which was 2013, which was already 10 years ago. So that would make it 25 to 30 years ago from now is when that vaccine, that was the 4-shot vaccine, was supposedly available. That's why I'm calling no, because the early 80s, no, that's too soon. I think it's really going back in time. Pier 1 imports wooden bamboo floating chair. Sometimes the import store has some pretty decent stuff for the price because it's built out of wood in some other country using kind of older style of just hammering stuff together. And so it's, better than the exploding China chairs, as you said. So that's my second one is Just something handmade from another country also can be pretty decent. Office chairs with the lifting and lowering Yeah, it has that. It has this like this metal contraption between the seat spot and the wood, and it has like a crank device and everything. I have some chairs from China, and what happens after a couple years is they just lower on you on their own. Like you sit on them and they're like, meow. But these old ones here, once you set that height, it's staying there. And it has this weird thing where I can kind of like go around like that. It's on springs. It's pretty bizarre. I don't think I have ever had a chair like that. Even in the 70s, we just had regular flat chairs. I didn't have. That was probably like the uber high-end awesome possum chair of the 70s would be my guess. And we didn't have those. We weren't the rich people with the latest technology chairs. This thing, though, I mean, literally, I think it will be fine 100 years ago. The wheel died, but you could just yank those off. Worst case scenario, I could just take the rolling wheels off. Guys, learn there's a giant hummingbird, a normal hummingbirds, the micro hummingbirds. The micro hummingbirds fly like bees. Yeah. And the other hummingbirds don't. So I have had that on. There was this like super, super tiny hummingbird now, which I call baloney. Wouldn't the big birds just eat such a tiny little bird? Like they're the size of an insect. I mean, one thing I've been seeing lately that I didn't used to see, the storyline kind of was vaguely out there, but I didn't ever see it. Is like, for instance, I saw a crow with a dead mouse in his beak flying like a couple days ago. You're really seeing them take the corpses of things, like to get them and fly with them and all this stuff. Now, I had seen like a very large bird, like a heron, go after some small rodents, but I hadn't ever seen like a crow with that. I'd heard of them pecking on a corpse, but not just like hunting, capturing, and eating whole, like gulps, So if there was a tiny little hummingbird, it just seems to me like the other birds would not consider it that different than an insect. Yeah, because he definitely got it for 21 shots. And it occurred to me, I never really checked into it. Why did they have to put it into the stomach? I mean, like the rabies, the dog bites you with rabies. It's injecting its rabies germs via saliva into the regular system. But that they put that in the stomach, why don't they inject it into the muscle? I mean, like, are the rabies hanging out in the stomach? Was that the story? What was the story? And it's probably different now, but I'm gonna have to look that up. Why did it have to be in the stomach? And I do think I remember them saying it was painful. Now that you brought it up, I just remembered this. You'd hear about it and be like, "Oh my!" It sounds like horrible torture. All the multicolored birds and bees are off the charts. Yep. Yeah, it's actually getting so complicated. I've been on for years. Each show has a lot of Mandelas. Then you guys bring up more Mandelas and we discuss them in passing. And it's like, did I cover that? Or something similar to it? Or an earlier version of it? I know I've had hummingbirds on. I know I've had small ones, weird ones, giant-tailed ones. Did I have that one on? It's like, ooh. Sometimes people swear I've had something on. I have no recollection of having it on. Was it another timeline? And other times they said the reverse, that they said that I didn't have it on, but I swear I did have it on. And it's like, and I've seen these same weird alternate timeline flippy floppies with other Mandela people, so I have to assume that it happens with me, although from my perspective it didn't change. So I don't know, you can go crazy. All right, so what is that thing in the thumbnail? That one was an interesting one. So I have had a version of this, speaking of changing versions, which I've been doing a lot of lately. Let me just do Google, actually. Google's so much better on the image hunt. It's the only thing Google's better at anymore. Not better than they used to be, but better than a lot of the current alternatives. All right, so I started seeing these things. Oh, great, it's all tiny. The oak apples, basically, are these gall type things that show up on the oak trees. And it was pre-pandemic, but it was a Mandela for me because we have a lot of oak trees around here. And I heard about them for the first time. And then shortly after that, I saw my first one. And since then, there's tons of these things. And I'm quite positive they weren't in the old timeline. But they are basically like, do we even... Oh, I have one. I have one. Yes. I have one. I'm so organized. So it's these. And they do get bigger. I've definitely seen them like that big. They feel like styrofoam, like as far as they're lightweight. They kind of have that consistency like of styrofoam. I'm sure they'd float. I haven't really tried it. So these grow on the oak trees. So oak apples. And it showed up a while ago. And I looked up these things. And then I had them on the show. I'm like, these didn't used to exist. And now they're all over the place. And the story is that a wasp will go into a leaf of an oak and inject a kind of poison or some kind of mutagen. I don't quite get it. They called it a poison. I probably should look to see if they've changed it, but they called it a poison that would cause this giant gall to grow, which is pretty bizarre in itself. But this puffy thing would grow, and inside the gall, the eggs of the wasp would be hiding, protected in there. I'm like, why don't you just squirt it into the trunk or something? But no, they make their own special sponge hive. And then eventually these wasps will break out of here, and they're super tiny. They say they don't bite humans, like they're considered a wasp, but they don't sting humans, at least last I checked. And they all blast out of there, and they go on and live their lives, and then eventually these fall off the tree. Okay, so hopefully there's none in there. I kind of got the impression they're out of there before this falls off the tree, and while these things are still kind of fresh. But I'll tell you, I did, when I first got these, I used to bag them and stuff because I was afraid a bunch of wasps would fly out, but it's never happened. And like I said, the wasps don't bite humans, so hasn't been so scary. But when I looked into them, that's all there was these, just like this, okay? And the ones around here are still just like that. But I thought it was interesting that they called it apples. Sure enough, now apparently, even though I checked thoroughly for the coolest image I could find of these last time, now they actually start off looking like apples. And I call baloney. They did not start off looking like apples. It makes sense because they're called oak apples. It's just now they actually look like apples. Watch for the names of these Mandelas because they're so predictive. So predictive. Like, they really look more like oak potatoes when they first showed up, but they called them oak apples. Okay. But apparently they're just dried ones now, and they'll start off. That one's kind of tiny. I suspect they might get bigger too. They can look pretty appley, but sometimes they're even kind of red. And sometimes they're even kind of translucent and other weird stuff. Here's one. Starting to look a lot like an apple. Certainly seems like. Oak apple galls. So the other thing is, when I first found these, it looked like there was just one kind of oak apple. But now There's not ones that, there's more kinds. There's not just these ones that look like the potatoes, and then there's not just ones now that look like apples, but there's like all this one's speckled. Like why would it be speckled? Wouldn't it make sense to have it the same as the trunk so no creatures could find it? Why make it speckled? I mean, it's not poisonous that I can tell. They're not. When I looked at these a few days ago, they were neither edible, because I'm wondering apples, nor poisonous. They're just galls. Like, look at this one. This one totally is looking like an apple now. So, very interesting. But then beyond that, what is that, like, thing? What is that thing that was on the thumbnail? Oh, where did it go? Starburst, I think it's supposed to be called. Ew, that one's excellent gross. Darn it. What was that one called? Red, triangle, green. Okay, that thing though, that was let's see. I'm trying to remember what search I used that found that one. Because I typed in a search for one thing and then I found that. Okay, so some of them are translucent. These are extra creepy. Although that was not, too tiny. Too tiny. Still too tiny. Good old Google. Anyway, just suffice it to say that there are rather translucent ones now that exist. I believe this is also ones. Okay, and that thumbnail is also one, and I thought it was Starburst Gall. Just gonna type in oak apple and see what comes up. All right, then I found these ones. Another one, I've never seen this. I don't think that this is the one I have, because the one I have is very spongy inside. And if you break it open, it actually still looks like styrofoam inside. Last I checked, of course, I haven't broke them up yet. So the story with these is like that the little larva's in the center here. And then this is, I don't know what, some kind of protective stuff. Last I checked, though, there was multiple larvas, not just one in the center. Check out this thing. That is so awesome looking and creepy. Okay, there's that little larva. How does it make, like, how does an insect get an oak tree to grow this entire contraption for it? Looking over the DNA of the oak tree to create this, like the cells of the oak tree, because this is not a structure that I know of in an oak tree. And somehow it doesn't squish this larva or anything. I mean, like, how is this being done? The larva is somehow keeping its center spot here. It's actually really strange when you start thinking about it. Okay, so here is those same ones broken open. So that's not the one that I have. The one that I have definitely is in this area is like styrofoam. I mean, look at how much these look like apples now. You know, and those of you who remember, I've had these on. There were no images of them looking like apples, at least not in my timeline. Of course, now I can't find that starburst. Oh, here's one similar. It's not the same, but it's similar. So basically, they're having all these weird shapes now, really bizarre shapes. And like, well, what is the point of having a weird, bizarre shape as your nest? I mean, wouldn't you want your nest to look the same shape as like same color as the leaf, blend into the trunk, something like that? You wouldn't want to like advertise your position, right? That's why I really feel like a lot of this stuff is just made for humans to enjoy, because I don't see any logical reason to have these bizarre things in the reality other than for us to see them and go, oh wow, oh, that's kind of cool. So apparently these are also galls. Why are they bright red? Are they going to be poisonous? Are they going to be edible? I mean, so basically you've got like trees that are growing all these bizarre structures, supposedly because a wasp somehow made them do it. And that weird thing that is on the thumbnail that I now can't find. I swear it was like a starburst oak apple. Let me see if I can find it. Oak apple. Nope. I swear I just looked this one up. Great. Look at this. Now it's all Starburst candies. Good old Google. Let's try star. Darn it. That one was such a cool one too. All right. I'll do something drastic and look at my search history. All right, so it's going to be before you guys were on. Starburst apple gall. Oh, apple gall. Maybe that's what I searched. By mistake. Still not seeing it though. Nope. Try again. Look, see, I did just search oak apples, oak apples, oak apples. Wait, it has to be at 11. I'm looking up mirrors and stuff of gilded. No, where was that? There, down here. That was just oak apples. It's weird because that is what I searched, but then I did not find. Nope. There was a number of them that I was looking, but that is not it. All right, I give up. I don't know. So would they change their algorithm in like an hour or two? Apparently they did. Sunburst gall wasp. See, I'm pretty sure I told. Okay, here we go. Maybe that's it. Not starburst, it's sunburst. Sunburst. Here is the beast. All right. This is a gall. Okay, this is not the creature itself. As best I can tell, this is supposed to be the outer protective coating. Basically the same as this. Why does it look like this? What is the advantage? What is the evolutionary advantage of it looking what humans would consider like really cool? Close up of a single gall. Now, this is not a huge thing yet, but I swear there was nothing like this on any gall, like apple galls or anything. Oak galls. Sunburst gall wasp is the the wasp that does this. So look at these things. Now, granted, they're kind of small. You'll notice there's quite a bit of variation in the colors, too. Something this timeline loves. In my old timeline, everything would be the same color, almost no variation. Then, slowly over time, you saw more and more sexual dimorphism. The male and the female look different. But now, they just look different. This one will have more red. Oh, this is an exceptionally red one. This one's got... See, like this one has red in the feet, and this is really red. Over here, the feet are yellow, and the ends of the tentacles are more white. These are just... This has to be created for humans, because I just don't see any advantage evolutionarily. This is to be designed to somehow appeal to our consciousness and our visual observation. I just don't see any other, and I feel like that's kind of a clue as to how things develop, that they're somehow developed to fit with what humans find interesting, at least some things, if not everything. Extraterrestrial alien walking flower entity. So how is it that a wasp injects what they were calling a poison, which I really feel is going to have to be determined kind of RNA, DNA manipulation? How is it that it injects a poison, and a poison causes this leaf to create this thing? Now, complete with colors and everything. Originally, when I was seeing them, they just looked like ordinary plant material. But this, I mean, this is on an Oregon oak tree, okay? I don't think that there is supposed to be any red on an Oregon oak tree normally. The flowers on oaks are usually really tiny white things, like tiny, or maybe a little bit yellowish. You barely notice them. They're really... It's not this. So how is this created out of the DNA of this green leaf via just poison? The story does not compute. That's the sticky tree flower dew thingy. The hummingbirds fly around to drink and eat. Supposedly it's the home of a gall wasp. Those animals with plant DNA. Though I did have some on, like they were like small underwater creatures that were able to ingest phytoplankton and incorporate it into their system. If you mean those ones with the plant DNA, allowing them to photosynthesize. And that story has been slowly evolving too. But that's the last I checked as far as animals with plant DNA. Okay, anyway, yeah, sunburst, not starburst. Sunburst. There was my mistake. Sunburst gall wasp. I'm like, no, there's no way poison creates that. Let me just see what they even say about these. Next gall, urchin gall wasp. Ooh, I'm glad I clicked on that. That's so awesome. Look at that. Urn gall wasp. Oh, this could be very addictive. And come on. How? Tiny striated surface with minuscule hairs. Minuscule hairs. Like, why is there hairs on this thing? How did the oak tree know how to make hairs? Manzanita leaf gall aphid. Galls induced by leaf gall aphids. So it's not just wasps now. Aphids made them and how? Spiny leaf. How long does this go for? Okay, we could be here all night. Oh, nice. Spiny leaf gall wasp. I feel like super trolled. All right, we're at the end of the library, I think. The question is, was there more of the library in the beginning? Whoop, no, not there. Next, what was previous? There should be a previous button. Shouldn't there be a previous button? I feel like I'm kind of ripped. Plant galls. Oh, chihuahuas. Yes, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Come on! This is so wrong. I'm just going to click on some of the more interesting ones. Pumpkin, gall wasp. Hopefully it doesn't take 100 years to load. All right. Two-horned gall wasp. Remember, this is just the gall. This is like the home that the poison somehow convinced the oak tree to create this home. Two-horned. So the little wasp just lives inside there. The wasp does not create this. The tree creates all of this, and then the wasp just somehow, baby wasp hides in the middle. Red fold gall aphid. So aphids are tiny little insects, so apparently they somehow are able to cause this to form on this leaf. Red fold gall. So if you're seeing beautiful colored berry beast thingies showing up on your plants, this is the mushroom gall. You would assume this is a mushroom, right? But no, it's not. It is a gall. And you can see that this is going to be like an endless game. Oops, I probably should not have pushed that one. History. Here. And we'll go back to there. Woolly. Let me just see what woolly looks like. All right, that just looks like cotton or something. Oh, interesting. So there's a cotton that falls off that then displays like a gourd-like thing. So, I mean, like this cotton, is this going to be like good for stuff? Medicinal? Starting fires? They're going to have like a crop of cotton caused by galls. A woolly mass of hair initially encased the gall, has worn away from the hard interior. So somehow an oak tree is somehow convinced to make a cotton-coated gall, even though oak trees don't make cotton. Ball-tipped gall wasp. All right, that's pretty weird. It's all fuzzy. This is ridiculous. So trolled. Clasping twig. I mean, are we going to get like, I don't really see the pornographic ones yet, but I have a feeling that we'll get those. Clasping twig gall wasp. This is ridiculously endless. Hair stalk. What would be the advantage of that? Wouldn't it just break off so easily? Red cone. Looks like those weird little hats that are on the Easter Island guys. I'm not even covering them all. Saucer. I think we did this one. Somehow it looks like little edible candies. Look, they're all different colors. There's a yellow one, there's a red one, there's a purplish one, red with a yellow center. Variegated style. All right. This one looks like crazy hair. Or maybe something else. Oh, two next to each other. So, I mean, like, what, are we going to get oak trees with, like, just, they look like little game pieces or something. There's little game pieces stuck all over them. All right, we got a pink one. We got some orangey brown ones. Oh, look, they change as they get older. They get desiccated. I'm going to go out there and my oak tree's going to be covered with thousands of game pieces of all these different shapes. Little clown hats. You know, I feel kind of ripped off when all I have is this. I thought these were really cool, but now I'm looking at this and I'm like, no, I got cheated. I want to see the game pieces stuck all over my oak trees. I wonder if these, if you pick them, if they would keep the color or would they would like wilt later. Look at that. Those look like they're pretty big too. So, I mean, like, this could be an interesting timeline. These galls are showing up on everything now. Like, it's not just oaks, but there's other plants. So, like, you could just have them all over the place. Urn. I think we did urn already. Yes, we did urn already. Okay, these are, haha. Okay, so these are some of the first ones. These are on roses. Spiny leaf gall wasp. On roses, it looks like. Yolo County, California. So I can see these. It looks like they're in the area. And then we did the manzanita. We have manzanitas around. Now, I do a lot of hiking. I've never seen that on a manzanita. All right, so we're spreading away from the oaks. It was white oaks, intermediate oaks, black oaks. Small selection of my favorites. Oh, I didn't see that one. Pink bow tie. How does that help? I mean, like why does it have the curve and everything? What is the advantage of that? Is it trying to collect water? Fimbriate. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, look, they're right next to each other. Plate plus striped volcano. Oh, coral. This is ridiculous. Come on. Beaked twig gall. I didn't even see these in the list. They're all just happen to be super awesome looking. Come on. Yeah, you need a bong ripper for these things. You're going to wake up and you'll be like, did that really happen? Or was it just because I smoked something? I found those little oak apples galls in 2018, surrounded by oak trees on the ground. I showed my neighbors who lived there most of their lives. Yeah, you know, I've lived here 25 years, and I never saw them until after the Mandela Effect. So it was pre-pandemic. It's funny how I pick I'm like, I judge time by what was happening during that time. So I know if it's pre or post-pandemic. It was pre-pandemic a couple years. So 2020. So yeah, around 2018. That's about right. It's when they showed up. So what did I have last year? Last year are these weird sticky vines that are apparently some kind of parasite that grows over the top of everything. Now, for a long time, we've had this plant parasite, this yellow, no, it's this orange, it's like this bright orange, like tendrils. That's all it is. But they only like certain plants. But now we've got this, it looks like a vine, but it's sticky and it grows over the top of like my acacias and stuff, and it's very fast growing, and that thing is taking over. I was just like, most of my acacias, we just had a few last year. Now it's over all the acacias. I was ripping it off. Like it's like poison. It's like ivy everywhere, just completely covering some of the acacias, yanking and yanking. And then you grab, it's all sticking on your hands. Slightly irritating to the skin for me, so be careful because it might be something that does irritate skin on some people. But that, I haven't figured out what that is. I've never seen that before until last year on anything. And it's like covering everything. It's like the parasitic kudzu of the universe now. And acacias are not native, so usually there's no native plants that attack them, but fugu pufferfish. Yeah. So I'm waiting. They're calling them like oak apples. Are they any going to be edible? So far, I have not found any edible. And then they're colorful. So I'm like, are they any poisonous? So far, I have not found any poisonous. So what is going to be the story in all these colors? And there's going to have to be some story that shows up eventually. If those things move, I'm going to jump. Yeah, I see stuff now and I'm like, I don't know if it's changed or not. You see an insect, I'm like, that didn't used to bite, but it might bite now. That didn't used to fly, but it might fly now. I'm like definitely more cautious than I used to be. More parasitic plants in this timeline, yes. And there'll be parasites that parasitize other parasites. So there'll be, it's like the Russian nesting boxes, this parasite and this parasite. I'm waiting for the parasites on the parasites on the parasites. I haven't seen 3 levels yet, but I bet you it's coming. It's only a matter of time. Oh, the other thing interesting about these that I found out a couple years ago is supposedly these are full of tannin, and they use these to tan things. Like you can crush these up and get so much tannin out of these that the Native Americans in this timeline used to use these to obtain tannin, and you can use it for certain processes in dyeing, like when you're like colorizing fabrics and stuff. They will use this as part of the procedure. And the Native Americans, so you can sell these online as like the nature craft people in the nature craft scene are interested in doing it the old way, which is the new old way, since I don't think that it was in my old timeline. But okay, so what else do I got? Well, those kept me busy for a while. So I was looking this up. Every now and then I'm typing. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this wasn't how you spelled this, but wait, I think I still spelled it wrong. There should be an O. I don't remember accommodation having 2 M's. It's like so long now. So I'm trying to type accommodation out, and I'm like, well, maybe it's an A instead of an O. Nope. You know how the spell check keeps dinging you, dinging you, dinging you. I tried a couple ways, and like, I tried every way that exists, and I look it up in dictionary, and it says it's 2 M's. It's like a name. That word is too long. I do remember the double C's, but I do not remember the double M's. So the accommodations got bigger, I guess. I'm really, really, really suspicious about those double M's, though. Why is that even in there? This timeline loves its double M's. So that, I think, is a spelling change. Are we still in the Orion arm last I checked? Although I think it's sometimes a spur, sometimes it's an arm, blah, blah, blah. I have a passion fruit vine suddenly all over my yard. Yeah, as far as I know, though, those are totally edible. So I have so many things in the yard the last few years I have never seen before. That weird parasite vine thing last year, I've never seen those. There's like all this stuff growing, and I'm walking out here going, what is that? There's this one that kind of looks like wheat. Never seen it. It's all over the yard. These peonies, those are cool, but I don't remember there ever being any peonies. I only know that because somebody else told me what those were. I've never seen those. They're everywhere. I'm like, okay, peonies are cool. The wheat ones look cool. There's another thing that's this tall grass thing, and I'm like, is that like the early stages of pampas grass? But the leaves are not sharp. So I'm like, well, are they not sharp because it's a young plant and they didn't get sharp yet? Or are there pampas grass growing all over my yard now? Because there were no pampas grass at all. And there's like at least 10 of these. And I'm like, what is it? Should I cut it out? Is it a pampas grass? It's some kind of grass. It did unfurl a little bit of what looks like a bit of pampas stuff, maybe, or like some kind of grains, like some soft grains. I don't know. Should I start slaughtering these things? Ferns everywhere. Never saw ferns here before. Ferns everywhere. There's a couple others. Some weird low growing stuff I've never seen before. All this year, and this, I know it rained a lot this year, but we have had other years where it rained a lot, and all I got was giant hordes of the same stuff we always had. I did not get any new plants during the last epic rains. Any. Where did these seeds come from? They have not been here for 25 years. That's none of these. Oh, Leonard Skinner spelling is like ridiculous troll now. I mean, like, I'm just looking at it. It'll roll up. You can see it on your end. Yeah, Leonard Skinner. I don't even get started with all that. No, that is just not like it. So for me, it was Leonard was like Leonard. There was not all this insane Y's everywhere. Aluminum though has not be. It's the same old. More carnivorous plants, yes. Just more weird everything. Closer to having carnivorous trees because there are species that seem to trap animals and allow them to die at the roots. Trees that trap animals. I've seen these on science fiction where they trap. I've seen this on sci-fi, but I've never heard of it in real life. Learn the types of animal traps, how trees make a difference. Trees trap ants into sweet servitude. A sip of nectar enslaves ants to the trees they guard. Oh, I've not heard of that one. What is it, addictive sap or something? Ants act as bodyguards for acacia trees, defending them from weeds and hungry animals in exchange for room and board. One of the most iconic alliances in nature. I have never heard of this. And I love acacias because they're so hardy. This is insane. No way. There's no iconic relationship. I've never heard of it. The tree's sugary snacks are laced with an enzyme that prevents the ants from heating other sources of sugar. Now, what happens if they do eat another source of sugar? One sip and the insects are consigned One sip and the insects are consigned to a life of indentured servitude. So what does it destroy every other ability to digest anything else and they just live on sugar? Surprised me that the immobile passive plant can manipulate the seemingly much more active partner, the ant. This is crazy town. Corals recruit goby fish. Acacia trees hire ants. Some are so ferocious that they can deter elephants. In return, the trees pay their bodyguards, providing shelter in the form of swollen thorns and food in the form of nectar or nutritious parcels called food bodies. Nutritious parcels called food body. This is cray. I've never heard of this. This alliance between ants and acacias is a staple of textbooks. No, it is not. But it's even more intimate than anyone suspected. Some acacias don't just supply their ants with any old food. They offer a biological equivalent of a check. This is bull. It's not in any textbook ever. Okay. Let me see if I can find one I don't have to pay for. Ants and acacia trees. I don't know why I wrote and in there. It's not really used to. And something about the sugar. This is no. This is not iconic. I've never heard of it. It is not the staple of anything. What between ants and acacia trees. Research completed in the early 2000s suggests that acacia ants are so dependent on the tree's nectar that they aren't able to digest normal sources of sucrose. Ants enslaved by acacia trees. I'll be like Biden and you get to get a glimpse of my notes. Sit down in your couch. Type on your computer. So I couldn't resist that one. I know it's a little bit political, but I actually enjoy making fun of everybody. So if Trump gets back into office, I'm going to make fun of him too. I'm an equal opportunity harasser. Acacia cornigera is known for its large thorns that are teeming with stinging acacia ants. It is known for this. I've not known of this. So that's pretty awesome. So this tree makes a home for the ants and feeds them. And in exchange, all these ants have to do is go bite everybody else. Mexico and Central America, so not that far from here. Symbiosis. They live among the swollen thorns of the bullhorn acacia. They attack hungry herbivores that try to snack on the leaves. Giraffes, for example, love to munch on the top of trees, but when they start to eat the bullhorn acacia leaves, they're greeted by a face full of tiny stinging ants and quickly reverse course. Wow. So these ants will fight off a giraffe. The ants give off a chemical signal when plant eaters approach that alerts other ants to join in the attack. Okay, so it's like bees without wings. Without the ants, bullhorn acacia trees would get eaten by everything from grasshoppers to small rodents like mice. Acacia ants also consume any unwelcome plants that start to grow around the tree. Now they don't have to compete for resources like water and sun. Researchers have discovered the ants also reduce the presence of harmful bacteria on its leaves. These don't really look like that small an ant, if these are them. I mean, the leaves on these acacias aren't that tiny. These ants are as big as a leaf. The leaves of acacia contain sweet nectar that acacia ants have become dependent on for survival. The tips of the leaves contain sacs filled with valuable nutrients, which adult ants eat and feed to their larvae. Ants aren't able to digest nectar otherwise than these ones, aren't able to digest normal sources of sucrose. All right, this is interesting because some are just saying the ants can't do normal sucrose, but other sources were indicating the tree somehow did that to the ants. The tree manipulates the ants into protecting them by providing exclusive nutrients that they can't get elsewhere. All right, the centers of the thorns are soft green texture. The ants consume the soft centers and live within the hollowed out sections. This thing is pretty well protected because it's got thorns all over it, and the thorns are filled with crabby ants that will attack everybody else. Okay, well, that wasn't the original plan, was it? But that's what we found. All right, we were looking for trees that killed mammals, I believe, was the original. All right, let's say that kill. Well, then poison would still be on the list if I'd use the word kill. Animal traps. I'm like, that might be a longish search because it's too similar to other words. Isn't acacia what they use to make ayahuasca? I don't think so. I don't think it's acacia. Ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is 2 ingredients. One is the drug, and another is an ingredient that prevents your stomach from breaking down the drug so that you could eat it. It can be smoked. It can be smoked? I have not heard of ayahuasca being able to be smoked. They always made you drink it and then you hurl. It can also be smoked. Why doesn't everybody just smoke the stuff then? Versus drinking the nasty brew and then hurling it all over the place. That's interesting. So I had assumed before that you couldn't smoke it because some plants can't tolerate high heat. The high heat would break down the psychedelic molecule and then it wouldn't work. All right, yes, it was a vine, I believe, was one of the ingredients. Okay, made by mixing broken stems of ayahuasca vine, which is Banisteropsis capi, and leaves from chacruna shrub. In some cases, it might also contain leaves of Diploteres cabrana plant. Okay, yeah, so nope, no acacias. Acacias are common landscaping plants around here, really common. We have very similar climate to some parts of Africa, and we need plants that can handle dry conditions, pretty hot summers, and acacias are it. Well, not the only ones, but they are very effective. And crappy soils, they're not whiny about the soil, they're not that whiny about the drainage as long as it's not too bad. So yeah, acacias are popular around here as a landscape plant. There's a number of varieties. I have low-growing acacia in the front, acacia redolens, very effective. And I've never had anything parasitize my acacias until this weird thing. Ivanka Trump will become a woman president in 2028. I don't know. I don't know. I remember I said a long time ago that I didn't think Trump would win I did think Trump would win that election because I thought the timeline loved all the controversy and cray cray that he brought to the table. So I was surprised when Biden won, but then we get he's cray cray in his own geriatric dementia ridden way, you know. So he's not as quite as cray cray as Trump was, but he did kind of swing the pendulum into another weird way. So now Trump is kind of back on the scene. So now I'm really curious how this is going to go down. But then you've got RFK. And RFK, even though they won't give him any mainstream press, he's kind of pulling a Trump. You know, he's kind of crazy out there, but he's coming out of nowhere as the anti-establishment choice. And will he, like, you know, stomp over everybody in the Democrat side? And then we'll have these two anti-establishment choices. So it could be interesting. It could be getting interesting. Sassafras tree are used to make E and Molly. E and Molly, I think that's the same stuff, isn't it? Sassafras. So, yeah, I thought, was it sassafras that made those? I thought that was for DMT. I thought sassafras made DMT. Has a little bit of DMT in it. I've heard smoking it, you don't get sick, but just one hit and you're somewhere else. That sounds like DMT. You know, maybe that's what they meant. They made them at DMT because you can smoke DMT, and yeah, you're gone ronies in like just like a minute. Like it's 0 to 300 mile an hour in a minute. You know, it's a lot. If you break through, if you smoke, if you do enough. A lot of people just like, whoa, no, I'm done. But look up Pisonia trees also as bird catcher trees. They trap and kill birds. The first ball down. Pisonia trees. Pisonia. Such a nice sounding name. All right, I'll just type it in. So one of the active ingredients in ayahuasca is DMT, but it is not the only one. But DMT is a really powerful. We get into Pisonia trees. The internet has been a little strange. Knock on wood. I changed one thing on the computer that sometimes fixes it. But basically it kept saying that I did not have internet access, but then the internet would come back. There, see it was doing it there. That's why I was kind of worrying. Pisonia. Genus of flowering plants. Certain species in the genus known as catchbird trees, birdcatcher trees, or bird lime trees because they catch birds. The sticky seeds are postulated to be an adaptation to some island species that ensures the dispersal of seeds between islands by attaching them to birds, and also allows the enriching of coral sands. All right, so it's not saying that they catch birds. They're basically saying that the seeds stick on the birds and are translocated via that method. All right, let's try bird catch tree and see what we get. Until you notice the bones. That sounds like it, right? That's interesting, though, because the other trees, they're calling them bird catch trees. Ooh, and they're just saying it's sticky. They seem like something that would be at home in Middle Earth. This genus is not fully understood as the new species are periodically discovered. The trees are typical until you notice the bones. They hijack birds. The birds nest nearby or even in the trees. The trees in turn flourish in the special soil made acidic by copious guano deposits. Wait, guano deposits? I mean, did an AI write this? I thought that guano came from bats, not from terns and other birds. Let me just click on this guano and say we're entering a new golden age of guano. Could be written in fertilizers. The history of guano, bird poop. What? Guano used to be bat poop, not bird poop. They always say guano was at the cave mouth. That was... All right, well, what is bat poop now? I absolutely swear it was bat poop. They would just say that, oh, it was, you can get sick from like having, how to identify bat guano. Okay. Bat droppings known as guano are small and dark. All right, so, can have severe impact on humans. Okay, I don't know if someone's just stupid or guano is now used for birds also. All right, sticky seeds, sponge may be all over the tree. Bird will brush up against the sticky seeds. Large numbers of the seeds stick to the bird's feathers, and they are so sticky that it is difficult for birds to remove them. Eventually, the seeds fall off. But this sometimes has dire consequences. Frequently, a bird contacts a bunch of the sticky seeds and becomes trapped, unable to move or fly. During really dense seed years, it's a common occurrence. Unable to free itself, it will soon die. Others become so laden down with seeds that they can't fly. White-tailed tropic birds and white terns seem especially susceptible. When a carcass falls to the ground, it's typically scavenged, but sometimes Pisonia trees have an ominous pile of bones at their base. Does the tree derive any advantage from killing birds? Apparently not. Controlled experiments do not show any enhanced germination of seeds attached to carcasses. And the nutrients a carcass may provide are nothing compared to a mass of guano. Perhaps they'll say that there's like some kind of special nutrients in the corpses. Who the heck knows? This is definitely interesting though, and I've not heard of these. Bird catching Pisonia trees. All right. That was interesting. You guys have a lot of good stuff today. Thank you. I think we blew evolution out of the water. Yeah, I know. I cannot understand, like, like those oak galls. I'm like, there's no evolutionary storyline behind those. And I looked today, I couldn't find anything. They're just, all that's out there right now is look at all these cool shapes. No explanation of why they're that. Bat poop is guano. Yeah, so, yeah, you can get peyote near San Diego. I do believe they grow around here. San Pedro cactus contains mescaline and other. But you can just get, like, DMT is not that hard to get anymore. I would not touch salvia. Salvia. So we have datura plants that grow around here. There's some just down there. That's not something I'd mess with. Everybody I've heard of that tried it just got it very ill. And the salvias, the stronger salvias. So like if you did like magic mushrooms, you know that you smoked something and now you're hallucinating. Like you might feel weird, but you'd kind of know what's going on basically. But salvia seems like it takes away that knowledge. Like you don't understand what's happening. You don't go, I am having a hallucinogenic experience. You know, it sounds like people actually think that what they see, like they don't remember how they got there, they don't know what's going on. They think it's all reality. Like they see this weird stuff, but they don't realize that it's an hallucination. So it's, to me, sounds way more creepy and dangerous because you don't know what's going on, you don't have control. It's a lot of, almost everybody I've ever heard said it was very negative, scary, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like it's a situation where you very much could run out of the house and get run over by a car or something. So I don't see any point. Same with cocaine. It's like, those are dangerous crap. It's unusual to get addicted to psychedelics. Now, cocaine and stuff, oh yeah, that can ruin your life. Now, I'm not saying it never can happen, that there are some people who can become, it's not physically addicting, but psychologically, if you're just trying to be escaping from reality all the time, it can happen. Okay, never heard of avian feces being called guano. I'm going to have to check on that. Guano. Why don't you just look up wiki and see what it says guano is. Takes an hour here. Seabirds or bats. All right. I'm calling bull on that because they never use that for birds. But we might be at a point where birds leave a lot more material now. It seems like they're a lot more concentrated numbers. The nest of the Peruvian booby is made almost pure guano. Ugh. Okay, so it is now either birds or bats. The 19th century seabird guano trade played a pivotal role in the development of modern input-intensive farming. So I don't think that there really was a huge concentration of bird poops in my old timeline. Not like there is for bats. Like birds might all nest in one area, but then they fly away. The rains come, and there's not like piles. Like the reason there's piles in the bat caves is because the rain can't get in there. The bats are in there for 100 years in a row. All right, so that's, I don't think we had enough concentration of birds before to accomplish that. Piss on ya trees. Yeah, I don't know. I kept saying, I'm like, they're just something about the name of those trees that just doesn't seem good. Maybe Trump will identify as a gay trans woman. I don't know if I'd even be surprised at this point if something totally wacky like that happened. Yeah, I would not mess with the stimulants. They're just too addictive physically. I figure, you either don't like it, there's no point in having it, or you do like it, but you might like it too much. So there's dangers on both ends. Plus, they're more toxic. So, like, if you look at shrooms, there's no known toxic dose. I mean, you could be toasted out of your brain for quite some time, but as long as, assuming you don't run in front of a car or something, you will recover. There's no, and LSD is the same way. There's no toxic dose. Now, on the other hand, the hard stimulants like cocaine, they can cause quite a bit of damage. So that's another issue with the toxicity loads. And then you look at crack and fentanyl and those, they're more and more powerful stimulants. It just keeps cranking up the strength level. But even the little bit older school ones can cause a lot of damage. And I've said before, I don't remember the nose disintegrating completely like it does in this timeline. It seems like it actually, I believe that was either coke or crack that would, might have been both, rots out the nose. So you actually have old photos of people whose nose basically deflated because the entire interior channels just disintegrate from it. just don't want to mess with that. So I really don't recommend it. Psychedelics rarely cause major problems. You can become a hippie stoner type, but it's not the most common. And I think it's because psychedelics are not all fun and games. Like, there's parts you might enjoy it, but there's going to be parts where it's going to tell you how you were a jerk yesterday when you yelled at that guy. And it tells you stuff you don't always, or whatever it's your subconscious, it's another part of you, it's some spirits, whatever. You are shown stuff that you know is true, but didn't want to admit, usually about your own ego and your own BS. And that's why it can be very therapeutic, but it also is not always that fun. It's like smacking your ego around. And you see it at a level where you can't argue. Like if your mom told you, you'd be like, yeah, 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 mom. Or your boyfriend or your husband said it, and you'd just be. But no, when your own head tells it to you, you can't argue. It shows you at such a deep level that you can't argue. You know it's true. You know you were a jerk. So that's why it can be very therapeutic, because it basically digs up your own bull, that stuff you were hiding under the mat, and it pulls it out and it'll wave it in your face. And so for that reason, it's not uncommon for people to have fun with it for a while and then have some trip that, they didn't like so much. Were told things that they didn't really want to know about. I wonder if there's any progress with Tartaria and Mud Flood MEs. All I just see is more and more crazy castles everywhere. I'm like, I don't even want to put them up anymore. We had some on some weeks ago. Just the star forts are now star cities, bigger and bigger and bigger. So they have used to be just a fort, now like 50 block city surrounded by a star. So they're moving along. So when I say salvia is dangerous, I don't know. I would just say it just sounds mentally really dangerous because you don't know what's going on. And it is very confusing that way. I really have not looked into addiction or any of the other stuff about salvia. Another example of an animal with plant DNA is the whitefly. It incorporates plant DNA into its own. What kind of DNA does it incorporate? What's the point of it having the plant DNA? LSD is awesome. It's natural from flower seeds. I don't think we're talking about the same stuff. There is one that's from flower seeds that is morning glory seeds, and I believe that's one of them salvia type things, isn't it? That is natural from flower seeds. So the morning glory seeds that you buy in the store to grow morning glories, those are treated, so you can't use those. But if you plant those, grow your own morning glories, and then harvest the seeds, then you can have this stuff. But this is another one that I've heard again is like the salvias. And I get a little confused on all those because I just basically have the category of no, I ain't doing that one. And the morning glories are on the no, I ain't doing that one category. Right? There's no point to it. They're known for being scary and unpleasant, highly confusing, and they are not known for helping you evolve and learn. Like, say, mushrooms, and even LSD will do that. But I just don't see any point in those if they're not going to help you. See, and I think the reason like crack and fentanyl and those, for a lot of people, I don't think it's everybody, but for a lot of people, they just feel really good. You just feel really, really good when you're on them. It's all pleasure and no pain while you're on them. You forget about all your worries, blah, blah, blah. Um, so that's why they can be so addictive, but then physically they're also addictive. So there's that. But mentally, it's just happy pills. So people very easily can become dependent on them for a sense of normality. Meanwhile, they're losing their ability to function without them, and it just eats you up. And psychedelics don't do that. They don't burn you out. They don't just, it's like, I kind of feel like fentanyl and those and cocaine, they're basically giving you a taste of of a higher spiritual plane that you are not ready for, but you crave this calmness, this peace, this utter alertness, and all of these things. We deeply want them, but if your body is not pure and healthy, that you would obtain it naturally, then you're just basically burning your body up. You just burn away and damage yourself, and you can't function without it, blah, blah. You just need to find that route naturally, or you burn up like Icarus going too close to the sun. The guy I toured for after, you could look it up. You just need morning glory seeds. And then I don't even think there's anything real special you have to do. I don't really exactly remember, but I don't remember it being complicated. Somebody who had morning glory seeds. I don't recommend it. I really don't. I just don't see any point to it. I don't know anybody who liked it. I'm not recommending cocaine and stuff, but at least I see why people want to try them, because they are fun for a lot of people. But morning glory seeds don't even seem to be that. We have another one, the datura, that's around here. Same thing. You're gonna hurl. You don't have that much fun. I don't know a lot about the datura trips, but that one was used by Native Americans, so it may have some therapeutic potential, but it's probably not going to be fun. I think that's why a lot of the Native American drug trips, they weren't meant to be fun. They were meant to be a challenge, like, climbing Mount Everest. But it was the mental Mount Everest. It's going to be difficult. They've got people watching you, so you don't run out into the forest and you have a tough time of it, but you come out knowing more about yourself and having accomplished something. But they're not fun. Well, datura sure is not. Maybe that's why shrooms are kind of in the middle. There's fun parts, then there's the ego smacking parts, but then there's some more fun parts. It's just enough to keep you coming back. Amphetamine, like a caffeine roller coaster, but 3 days up and 3 days down. Yeah, you just burn yourself out. You're damaging your body. It just, I think all of those, when it's all fun, you pay. You're going to pay for it one way or another. Your body's going to pay. We've seen how many lives are destroyed from it. Yeah, Vision Quest. So some Vision Quest drugs are harder than others, I do not know a ton about Datura as far as how they do it. I actually should look into that, because ayahuasca's gotten so popular, and that really doesn't often seem so fun either. There's a lot of barfing. Somehow that never seems fun to me. What's the difference between datura? I really have not looked into that one. Okay, so, geez, we're at 2:08, so I think I'm done. I am done. I have a few, but they're not really that big a deal, and I will cover them next week because it's 2:08. So thank you guys. You had a lot of good ones for me today. I had a good time. And this is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.